Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tropic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Thursday, May 8th. We'll try to recap. Try is the correct term. All of the day's events and the price action for you. Before we do that, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. So, I would say like a pretty productive day when you look at the where what the actual numbers are, but a little bit of weak tape there at the end of the day. So it's a bit of like baby steps, I think, with this market. So let me go through recap the numbers for you. SPY finished up 0.7 of a percentage point. Qs finished up 1% for the day. I mean, these are good numbers. Especially when you look at what IWM did and what the microcap ETF did today. IWM was up 1.9%. And the microcap ETF was up 2.7% for the day. So these are really strong numbers. A lot of these, I don't want to say a lot of the moves happening, in the beginning of the day, and then we had a little bit of a fade where we hit some resistance. So I will go through those charts with you. What I do find, just a quick overview of today, is what I do find interesting is that the IWM continues to lead a little bit. Today did feel like for a good portion of the day, pretty risk on. When you look at what growth stocks did today, they were up 0.8 of a percentage point. Or I'd say 0.9 of a percentage point looking at large cap growth, and value was up 0.4 of a percentage point. Also, looking at some of the areas that outperformed today, the crypto stocks were on fire for a good portion of the day. Kind of just stalled out there, around middle of the day, but Bitcoin did finish up 5% for the day. So again, like these are wonderful numbers. I guess to think that maybe to think that we're going to trend all day long is probably more than this market has in it for now. But I mean, like that's a great number. Crypto stocks did very well today as well. Also, what was kind of interesting is look at how well energy stocks did today. Both clean energy and traditional energy stocks were up about 3% today. So these are big market moves. Now, let's talk about where we are in terms of the chart, because it kind of looked like, based on where we were yesterday with Powell's testimony, it kind of looked like the market was leaning to the downside. And then we had some positive headlines that came out, scooped this market back up towards the end of the day. And, then we had some movement, of course, in the after hours market with a trade deal being announced, and that was gone over earlier in the day. But it's a very much looking like a doji type candle there for SPY, meaning a bit of indecision. So again, overall, good percentage move, but we're not taking out that 200-day moving average. So right into that, I'll also show you this. What I said in the very beginning of the day, and I put this on Twitter too, was I said, hey, what I want to see is price get above Friday's high and start to trend and start to kind of get out of this sideways action that we've been in all week. And start to kind of make a direction. And my thought, yesterday I put this in my midday note, was that this market is most likely going to break pretty decently one way or another. Now, middle of the day or end of the day yesterday, it looked like we were going to break to the downside. Like that could have been it. And then we kind of moved, decently back up. After that, then there was some slide back down and a move back up. And now we're just so then there was this fade at the end of the day. So we're basically just right back to where we started the week, very close to it, and a little bit of rejection there. Notice that there's a VPOC that we hit that around 2 o'clock. That was essentially the highs of the day. That point of control is coming from this value area back in here. So that's SPY. So I think really what to watch is the highs from Friday. Further, where we got to the high of the day was the 200-day moving average. So price having some difficulty with that. The positive is we're back above the 5-period moving average and back above the weekly chart. And I think also like this market is, you really have to have some patience with this market, because it will kind of shake you out if you're looking for too much from this market. Here's the daily chart for the Qs. Same thing. That's another attempt at the 200-day moving average. Notice how sticky this has been, this 200-day moving average. When we broke below this all the way back in the beginning of March, we came back and tried to test it and retake it. That's your first failure. Your second failure came on the 25th, and then we really dove back down. Right? We had this uh, third attempt was on last Friday, and again, this was a big move. So it was like, okay, that makes sense that we're going to pause at that 200-day moving average. Maybe we back and fill. What I said this week was like some digestion would be perfectly normal. We kind of tested really the downside of that and found buyers, but we're not able to really kind of change direction here in the Qs too. So I would continue to watch. Same thing with SPY. I would continue to watch that 200-day moving average. The 1 hour charts are going to be kind of similar situation, except there's no VPOC here, but we're basically, again, just back to where we started this week, all kinds of sides. So, this reminds me of, I think, where we were a couple months ago, even before we started to sell off. It was a situation where if you were chased the moves where we were green for the day, you got disappointed. And if you were pressing shorts on the downside, you got disappointed there as well. Now, if you're buying the dip and selling the rip, that worked pretty well because every time that we kind of got to the lows of this week, we bounced from them. So again, just to kind of summarize like what's been working versus what's not working. I'm more of a trend trader, so I have a difficult time with that. I generally wait for the first move to take place, and then I begin to kind of put some things into place or be a little bit more aggressive. So that has not been easy for me. I did put some money to work today, although I took some money off the table today because I always like to my what I try to always communicate is when we do have a gap up, I'm always trying to be a net seller, at least for the first part of the day. And then I can kind of go from there and look to see how this market is shaping up. But regardless, I'm always looking to sell on gap up. So I could talk about a couple of things that worked pretty well. I could talk about a trade idea that did not work well. Let me get the one that did not work well today. I was really looking for a move out of, looking at what happened with this small company, this SEZL. This is a buy now, pay later type stock. That's their main business. I did, check out what they do and their business model, and it's basically buy now, pay later. Really big move. But again, I think it kind of comes with a situation where, a lot of these stocks that are moving like this, some of the expectations are just not very high. I've heard of this company once or twice, but I've never traded this company before. But that's a colossal move in this name. I was looking for this to kind of follow through with a firm which reported after the close today, and I pre-positioned in this morning, which worked out pretty well. The stock rallied, then it kind of gave back some of the gains as the day wore on. I was lucky enough to have a target out there right at the VPOC, which I mentioned that these were a couple of areas that I was looking for in my midday note. Sorry, I believe in my morning note. So here's the trade idea that I issued this morning in a firm. I said that I was basically looking for this to get up to the VPOC of 58.20, and which is about which is a decent move higher. And I think that was about, from where we were this morning, about a 7% move up. So you look at this, and so 58.20 is exactly where the stock got to. I did sell some there. So I wish I would have sold the whole in hindsight 2020. I wish I would have sold the whole position there, but it got there very, very briefly. That was the initial earnings reaction. It did not stay there. Here's what the numbers, here's what this is DraftKings, sorry. Here's what they did say. I guess their forecasts fell short of expectations. C's gross merchandise volume 9.4 to 9.7, saw 9 to 9.3. There was something in here that they didn't like. Year forecast 3.16, 3.19. So I guess they were looking for more than that. And here's the rest of it too with there's their forecast, which was not as high as expected, hence the stock sold off. So, lucky to get some of the trade off, but and right to that VPOC. But man, that's a nasty rejection, and I personally did not sell enough of the position. So I just wanted to go over how that trade worked out, how I played it. We'll see if the stock can get over that. What I liked about this trade setup was that the stock was not near all-time highs. It was kind of digesting here. Now, again, it made a nice move today. It was up about 5% for the day. So I had a nice gain on my hand. So I'm glad I did bring the register on a portion of the position. But I would say overall disappointing. Let's go to a couple names that I think, Robinhood, one of the most popular stocks out there. This one, I did sell the majority of my position at right at this VPOC. This was the target that I had been talking about for a while, 54.70. Again, you had to be a bit patient with this one. It was a bit of disappointment on the earnings, where we initially tried to go higher, failed. But what was nice here is we never really broke support. And I set my stop, a little bit inside the value area. So I took off the majority of my position. I'm out of 90% of the position. My average cost basis was 48.50. So that was a nice looking trade. Other than that, I'll bring you up to speed in a couple other things that I thought were interesting today. Looking at some of the earnings reports, Melly, such a big move. Again, up 6.5%. Maybe this comes back in and retests. If it does, I would definitely be a buyer in there. Another fintech name, Dave, goes right up to the VPOC. Right. So I mean, again, another colossal move. This is a 40% move. So that's why to me with the firm, it was like, hey, to get some of these moves, you have to hold through earnings. And I know that's a tough game. But seeing as some of these names are just making these colossal moves, you have to catch a couple of them to make up for a couple of the duds. So that's kind of the name of this game that we're seeing for earnings season. A couple of names that are doing well in the after hours market. Pinterest, I don't know how Pinterest keeps doing this. They seem to have such a good earnings history where they go up on earnings. I don't know anybody who uses this company, but maybe it's something more international. But very good, nice earnings reaction there for Pins. A couple other names that reported. TTD's up 11%, so a little bit of redemption after they fell really hard for the last quarter. Cloudflare's also up. A couple other things that I thought were interesting for the day. A couple AI plays. TEM did very well. Tempest AI. So that's I mean, again, heck of a move today, up 11%. So finally, I think some of these growth names really got going today. The question will be, is it going to be more than just one day of a move? Palantir came back with a vengeance today. That's a real nice candle. The level that I'm watching in Palantir is right around. So again, just kind of using some short-term charts, short-term levels, but I would be watching 118.85. If this level holds, right, or we can even just kind of stay somewhere around here. I think if you go back to this daily chart, what you might have here is a cup and handle type pattern, right? Here's your cup, here's your handle, and then maybe this thing starts to kind of, even if it kind of backs and fills a little bit, then goes higher. Something to watch. It's a very expensive stock, and I think you got to have the right environment for this stock. So regardless, at the very least, 7.8% move. That's a very nice move for a day. And at least you're getting things, even if you don't want to stay committed to swing trading in this environment, you're getting some good, daily moves. A lot of the defensives today, I thought for the most part sold off a little bit, right? I had been talking about that. So you finally saw some rotation out of these market leaders. Philip Morris, I know people get angry when I call them market leaders, but it is what it is. Names that have been breaking out now for a good couple of weeks. Look at CAH. This is why I have said like, hey, I don't want to own these names up here because like anything else, there could be rotation when it's more of a risk on type tape. So this was down 4% today. Another one that's been strong has been McKesson. Also down decently today, down 4.4%. So profit taking and rotation out of some of the real defensive areas of the market. This is ICE. This has been another one that got out to new highs and a little bit of a rejection there at previous highs. All right, guys, that is it for today's recap. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.